One of the things I think is really useful, and granted, when you say this to a young person, they tend to roll their eyes, I know, because I have teenagers, and that's civility. Civility sounds very old-fashioned, but it does remain one of the few ways that modern heterogeneous societies can exist in peace. Because civility is what offers us guideposts for behavior that protects us from each other's worst impulses, while also allowing us to spend time with each other in public space. And by public space, I think that has to include now not just physical space, but digital space as well. So unfortunately, particularly for younger generations, their preferred method of communication undermines any effort at civility at every turn. Social media platforms reward engagement, regardless of whether they're engaging with an incredibly mean tweet that someone sent about them or a violent YouTube video. So I think that as young people spend their daily lives and their interaction being mediated by platforms that encourage engagement rather than civility, there's a lot of, it becomes more difficult to actually encourage the kind of civility that would allow free speech to flourish. I will say that these technologies, and particularly the smartphone, privilege immediacy, immediate reactions, not contemplation. They encourage performative speech, which is, I think, different than free speech, sort of performing one's own views, not with the intention to persuade or to engage, but simply to perform one's views. This is actually also for a lot of younger generations potentially dangerous to the person's reputation, right? Because we've heard these stories of something someone tweeted in high school or Snapchatted in high school being dug up years later and shown to the world to cancel them or to prevent them from getting a certain job. So what I guess I want to encourage is a discussion where we start not condemning younger generations for misunderstanding and not practicing free speech, but encouraging them to understand that the right to offend is very important and is part of this effort for overall for free speech. But so is the ability to be offended without resorting to cancellation or contempt. And I think both of those things have to happen. We can't just encourage younger generations to get out there and say whatever they think and expect to be heard. We have to also teach them to understand a disagreement and to understand that other people are not always going to be on board with what they say, but we each have a right to say it, and to encourage that kind of communication, not just through civility, but with obviously through all of the kind of traditional moral and religious teachings that older generations were, I think, at some point take for granted in the same way that we take for granted some of the constitutional protections of free speech that we all benefit from on a daily basis.